Hi, and welcome to Neither Here Nor There. I am your host, No Special, aka Austin. And with me today is our interpret editor in chief, Dave, and Chaudhry, and Steve, the championship level editing team that they have over there. And then also joining us today is our incumbent host, Lazybed, hosting next week's this weekend's fights. JBR. He's very much better host than I am. So forgive me for kind of hijacking this beginning here. But we're here to talk about the UFC Apex. This weekend is the UFC Apex 100 show, and we're going to talk about the history of the Apex, our feelings on the Apex, whether or not the Apex is good or not, and hopefully this show doesn't fucking tank. And this is neither near here nor there. And today we're talking about the Apex and all of its glory. Thank you. So, with that, Dave, could you read me the first question?
As we approach Apex 100 this weekend, what are your thoughts on the recent quality of fights at the Apex?
I will let our guest go first.
I would say the recent quality has certainly gone downhill. You could see it in the video that Dave recently made of the 100 Apex cards up until this point that actually got shared on the Boys in the Back show on the Uncrowned channel. So shout out for that, Dave. But in that video, you could see the quality has clearly declined. In the beginning, when we were getting these Apex cards, we were really getting some doozies. I mean, they were sticking some title fights on these cards. They were being headlined by big names. Even the undercards were aligned with more known characters to a certain extent. Anymore, though, this is just, you could tell they got a quota that they need to meet, and they have a roster, a very bloated roster of whatever it is, 700 plus athletes, and they've got to put these guys on cards, and what better place to do it than in their little fight warehouse. So yeah, I would say that the quality of fights has definitely gone downhill, and I don't think that's debatable.
Yeah, pretty much verbatim. Watching how they've promoted some of the fights inside the Apex for the last year, actually even more than a year, I would say the last 3 years, I would say. To varying degrees, some of the Apex shows have just not been priority as far as promoting, right? Where they're like, all right, we have some, as Brian Campbell would say, majors that they're looking forward to. The, November, December cards, the July cards, the March cards, the August fall cards, right? And you're looking at this swing of how we promote the UFC has changed. The way that they promote the UFC fights in general has changed. The way that they have promoted the Apex has just kind of been, there are going to be fights. we have fights. Don't worry about it. We don't have to go out and get a whole site fee or anything like that. They're going to be at the Apex. It's not going to be a whole lot of people, but there's going to be fights. Don't worry about it. There's going to be fights. We promise. There's going to be fights, right? And we're kind of like, we're as degenerates. We go, fuck it. We got let's say practice this weekend, right? With the incumbent gatekeeper Neil Magny. Yeah, fuck it. Why not? This is Apex fight. So who gives a shit, right? I think that would the way I would describe it is, it's Apex fights. Who gives a shit? that's the current state of how they've been promoting, and that's the way I feel about like how I watch the Apex fights. Who gives a shit? I'll watch. I don't have to watch. Stop my life for it, but I'll watch.
I don't know what Dave's going to say, but I would just like to say real quick. It's basically it's like Luke Thomas has said before. It's buffet food. Like you don't have to take everything. You don't have to love everything, but you can pick and choose what you do. Like it's not the best, but it's there for you if you want it. That's the deal.
I don't mind that though. That's the thing. I if you're gonna ask me, I'm a dude who likes to indulge in shit. I think I've had like 8 pieces of pizza today. Like I had 6 for our lunch work meeting, and I had another 2 for dinner tonight. and I got a 12-pack with 2 specialty beers on top of that. And I'm not endorsed by these people, but I'm drinking a Firestone Tequila Barrel Sunrise, which is 11%, and it was zesty. Is a word I would say to that. And then I'm having a good time. But but no, like he's right. You look at the Apex and you're like, yeah, I'm just gonna have that. It's like, it has seen pizza here. There's some lasagna over there. There's some some pieces of what appears to be meat, but you're not sure what. But hey, you're probably gonna eat it. It's all going. It's all cheap, so it's fine. Dave, do you have anything to add to this?
No. I mean, the card quality is, I think it's actually gotten a little bit better recently. Not so many heavyweights headlining.
That's the qualifier. That's the qualifier.
Yeah.
And, Lazy made a good point about the buffet. And, I love a good buffet, old country buffet, Golden Corral. So I don't mind it. It's fights. I don't have to be super into it, but, I get my fill. And, yeah, I've been content with the level of Apex cards.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not looking for like top quality content, it's not bad. It's consistent fights every single weekend, just about, with the few rare occasions we do get an off week. And for the most part, you know what you're gonna get. You know roundabout what the product is gonna be. There's been certain things that you could nitpick on, like the new gloves and shit, cutting down on maybe the amount of KOs and different things like that. But it's a consistent product. It's something that you can rely on. You can always fall back on good old Apex fights.
Yeah.
All at Apex, which is getting a renovation after this. So, if I'm not if I'm not mistaken, right, it's supposed to be closer to 500 occupants. Is that? Did I read that wrong?
I'm not positive. You probably know that better than I. I just know that they are supposedly switching to permanent seating and adding more seating. So.
Well, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, leave it to the WWE to teach how the UFC how to actually take advantage of a space, right?
Yeah.
Like, God forbid they actually know how to entertain people.
The latest update I heard on the construction going on the Apex, and I think I got this from Marcel Dorf. What was initially going to be like we were going to get months and months off, it's now been like cut way, way, way down, and we're going to see like almost no time at all away from the Apex. So that's kind of a downside, but it is still getting renovated. To what extent, I'm not sure. But yeah, the initial plans of, we're going to be away from the Apex for 6 months, that was bullshit.
God damn it. I was looking forward to more shit cards on the road, just to see how they would scramble to fucking adjust to that.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun with the road cards, like the KFC Yum Center. That was a fun one. We had a lot of fun with that.
That's right. I remember that. Oh shit. All right. Before we get off track, Dave, can you read the secondary or the next set of questions for us, please?
As the UFC isn't leaving the hallowed Apex anytime soon, besides the maintenance that they're going to be doing, what would be the perfect number of events at the Apex?
Well, is that the perfect number of events, like overall in the history of the Apex, and once we hit this point, we're shutting it down for good, or is that like a certain amount of events per year? What's the qualifier here?
I would say year. Let's say year, because currently we're looking at between 15 and 25 events per year. There's no consistent number with it. I would say between 15 and 25 is the number that they end up with. I would say the sweet spot is probably 20 for the UFC that they like. What would be the perfect number of events that you think is necessary for the UFC?
Yeah, okay. I would say in a year, as far as the UFC itself goes, 12 events total seems more than enough in a year for me. Like one Apex card a month for the UFC. With some of the underlings and the people that are not necessarily ranked yet. Maybe they're just debuting, something along those lines. Now, granted, I could see that number increased because I do believe that the Apex is the perfect place to hold shows like the Contender Series and Tough if they want to do that. It's the perfect venue for events like that. I just don't want to see UFC cards continually held there. And while I see their outlook on it and their benefit at holding events there, it doesn't do much for the at-home product if you're watching from home. And I can't imagine it really does a whole lot for the live viewing experience. So yeah, I'd say 12 a year seems to be perfect. Just give me one Apex fucking show a month.
Ah, that's actually close to what I was going to say. My ideal situation is if the UFC is going to push for a pay-per-view, almost a pay-per-view a month, right? I would say the perfect combination should be pay-per-view, Apex show, and then road show. And then we go to pay-per-view, Apex, road show, or like some combination of the three. So that way it's 12 months is a long time for a lot of events to happen, right? And currently we have, I think, almost a show every 42 weeks. There's a show every throughout the year. Realistically, I think cutting that back a little bit would be nice. It gives the UFC more reason to stack the pay-per-views, but it also gives them some leeway to kind of put some more effort into the like road shows that they have, like fight nights. And the Apex can get a little bit more buffering as well. But the idea is to not stretch the undercards so thin to where you're like, I don't even care about half of the prelims or most of, if not all the prelims. I only care about maybe the main event and the co-main event, because it seems like half the time they push the pay-per-views to be big, but they don't put a lot of effort into putting the fights in certain orders. And half the time when you watch the Apex fights, you're only caring about the main and the co-main. So for me, it's like 12 would be great. If they do more, they do more. But like mixing those with the appropriate number of fights between that and not overloading us with Apex cards, but not supplementing only Contender Series fighters with that would be the thing. So I think as long as you could give me, I think you're correct. 12 is correct. 12, I think, is the correct answer, because that's one show a month. You're not burnt out on the Apex every single month after that, because you've had 3 Apex shows prior to that, and then you're already like, oh, we're already back at the Apex. I thought we were done with the Apex. Nope, we're back at the Apex again next week. God damn it. You know?
Yeah.
Good.
The next thing you made me think of that I wanted to add there. It would be almost perfect if they did it uniformly, like you were just saying, Austin. I could go for 1 week off per month where there's no fights. So give me the first week of the month is an Apex event. The second week of the month is a road show, just a fight night on the road somewhere. Third week of the month, we take the week off. There's no fights that week. It's your respite week, but it's all promotion, because the fourth week of the month, that's pay-per-view week. And then we go, to whatever big venue and we hold our big blowout pay-per-view event. It's perfect. You don't need to fucking question anything. You don't need to wonder what's on the calendar. You don't have to worry about back-to-back Apex events. I think I would like that.
Yes. We've solved the UFC's problems. God forbid we would actually get paid for this shit. Dave, do you have anything to add to this?
No, not really. I mean, I'm happy with a lot of Apex events. I think we need to have at least the Contender Series still happening there. And if they do Tough, then you still have to have those. And like 2 a month outside of the Contender Series. So 24 Contender Series a year. Or 24 Apex fights a year, not including the Contender Series or Tough. So more than you guys like. 2 a month.
I could even go for that. Like if instead of doing the off week idea like I had, and the third week of the month being an off week, they could go back to the Apex for that third week if they really wanted to. I wouldn't mind that. 2 Apex fight night cards a month. That's reasonable.
I like
Go
my
back to
buffet.
go back. I know that's fair. Like, well, if you like your buffet, why not just have 2 Apex cards in the same week? Give us a Monday show and a Friday and a Thursday show, right?
No.
Or a
Yeah.
Monday Wednesday show. Or I wouldn't mind having excitement for a weekday fight night that is on like short, like maybe 10, 8 fights. I don't know. I hesitate to say 8 fights because I know that means that they would probably shoot for less fights, but I wouldn't mind that if there was an ideal like, hey, we can put this on the weekday so that way you can still have the weekend off. You know, that'd be interesting to see.
Yeah.
I mean, they did used to occasionally hold fights on like Fridays, or sometimes they would have the very rare double night fight cards where they would do Friday and Saturday night.
Yeah, they did that with like one of the international fight weeks. They had like a tough finale, and then they had like a UFC, and then
Yeah,
like the next weekend they
yeah,
had a UFC, and it was like too much.
yeah. I wouldn't want it all the time, but it's again, it's kind of the from the WWE playbook, and that's sort of what they do with their flagship events now, like the WrestleManias and shit. Like instead of it just being a one night event, they spread it out over the entire weekend. And it's one, they can make more money that way because a one night event turns into a 3 night event, but it also does accommodate a lot more of the fans that want to come and can't necessarily get a ticket for the one night event, but they could get one for Friday night or Sunday night. So it would be a bit of overkill, but I sort of see what Austin's saying. Like it does, if they want to hold those extra Apex events, it doesn't always have to be held on the same night as the big events, the big shows.
That's fair.
Yes, very fair. All is fair in love and war. I'm about to finish the second beer.
All is not fair in love and war.
You did not watch the movie then.
What movie?
I'm hella buzzed right now. Dave, could you read us the second question for us, please?
How would you market the Apex events differently, or how would you structure the cards differently if you had the choice?
Oh man, well, as far as structuring the cards differently, there's a number of things that you could do. I know that there's a number of things that they already do. There's certainly a rhyme and a reason after all of these years to the way that they structure their cards. I know that they do. They like to put several guys at the same weight class, guys or gals, on a card usually, and that's partly in case somebody does fall off. They can swap guys around from the same weight class if need be. And then they also like to have people of the same weight class, usually on consecutive cards, and that's so that the timelines line up correctly for future matchmaking and makes that more convenient and easy. But there is some stuff that they could do to make these Apex cards a little bit more exciting if they wanted to reorganize them. One of the things that I think they could do is sort of theme them a little bit, not themes in like a silly way, but theme them like weight class wise, like have a lightweight night where it's nothing but 155ers that fight on the card, or a welterweight night, or God forbid a light heavyweight night, and it'd be the worst, most boring night of your life. But that'd be a fun little change. Even like a ladies' night or something where it's all women, or people are going to object to these ideas, but these are just ways that they could shake things up a little bit. And then as far as the marketing, I mean, I don't know how you really market fights in a warehouse any more than they already do. Yeah, maybe do a little bit more promoting of ESPN Plus itself as an app. Work with the people at ESPN to make their app a little bit better, a more enjoyable experience. And if the experience of viewing things on ESPN Plus was a bit more fluid, maybe that would work as a promotion for their fight nights. I don't know. Promoting a fight at the Apex is tough.
Nah, no, you're not wrong there. God, because it's like the question should be right. With asking the UFC how they, like you said, they have certain ways that they structure these cards. They have certain ideas of what the Apex should be. And for most of us, it's not so much who's fighting, but why they're fighting, right? Contendership usually matters to us that are watching on a regular basis. Stakes usually matter to us when we're watching guys at the main event and the co-main event. Ladies are pretty much on a perpetual, you're here, but we're going to acknowledge you, and if you happen to be the main event, we're going to give you some leeway on being the star of the show, but you're not going to be the only fight that we're going to promote. And it's like there's a lot that you can probably do. For me, there's less heavyweight fights would probably be ideal, because a lot of the times it's weird because there's other sports that pay more, but at the same time, there's a lot of fighters out there. I think I made a stat that I think is also true. There are just as many flyweights as there are heavyweights, or light heavyweights, I should say, inside the UFC currently, which is interesting to say because you would think that weight class that used to be the flagship weight class of the UFC back in the day, light heavyweight, would be the weight class that they procure a lot of talent in, but that doesn't seem to be the case nowadays. It seems that anyone from the bantamweight division, 135 pounds for men, up to 170 pounds for men, seems to be the proper divisions that have plenty of bulk for names and good fights. Like, you can make a matchup within the top 15. You can't go wrong in any of these weight classes. Whereas the women's divisions seem to be all over the place as of late. So it's like trying to give them, structure in the weight classes that they would manufacture reasons to put onto a card. Sometimes I feel like the matchmakers don't care when they try to structure a card. So it almost feels like they're just kind of throwing whoever has availability plus who's ever owed contractual obligations for fights. Seems to be the make and model of how they structure the fights on the Apex cards. Whereas it should be, if we can't take the fight night on the road, bring it to the Apex. That should be the way that they do it. If we can take this card specifically that we create and put it out there for somebody to take on, we get that fight night and we take that on the road. If we can't get somebody to pay for us to be there, because that seems to be also part of the UFC model, to get site fees as of late, still give effort to the card and bring it to the Apex. The idea should be, I should want to go out of my way to watch it, right? Oh, damn, I can't. I gotta. Looks like I'm gonna be like going to that barbecue because I gotta fight to watch. That's also them preying on our goddamn needs. So there's that. The other thing we should probably be meaningful matchmaking. It should be the thing. If a fighter's on a fucking fight,
or is that
yes,
UFC wide?
Because the idea should be, how do we market it? Give us fights that have some meaning and some stakes, right? Yes. The idea should be, the fights that are at the Apex should not just be fights that we have that are, you probably need a fight. You're coming off a loss. Who gives a shit? This person's also in your same weight class. It's fine. It should be, we have a fighter who's on a 5-fight win streak, and they're meeting a fighter who's also on a win streak of themselves. They're looking to break into the top 15. This fight should have some meaning to it. Or we have fighters who are just coming off of the top 15 losses, and they're looking to get back into the top 15 themselves. Give us something that's going to be tangible for us to give reasons to watch. Because if we're just looking at it as another fight, yes, it may be entertaining, but if there's no stakes, it makes it less watchable. If there's two guys just fighting, you're going to have hardcores you're going to watch, but we need stakes in order to watch. Give us reasons to watch. Give us reasons to go beyond just, it was a fight that happened. It didn't really need to happen. It should be, well, these guys are both prospects. They're both looking to make a name for themselves in this division. They're both looking to make a first impression on the division themselves. These guys are looking to establish themselves as contenders. that should be the way that you introduce yourself on fight nights, which are broadcasted on, the Apex. Yeah, but that's just me talking out of mess, because I I know that the UFC tries and doesn't do this. So again, it's wishful thinking, I think.
Yeah.
It would be something that they could do that would be interesting. They could institute like a stipulation to Apex Fight Nights where there has to be a minimum of like 2 ranked bouts on the card. So at the very least, you have 2 fights of consequence that have repercussions going forward, and it's not just either 2 old legends scrapping to make a buck or 2 young guys on the come up that nobody's heard of. Like, give us a couple of bouts of consequence on a card if it's going to take place in the Apex, where we're not getting the added benefit of venue and crowd. Because an Apex fight night really sucks when the main event is 2 unranked donks just fucking slugging it out.
Yeah, no, that's honestly the worst. Dave, could you please read us the next question?
Should the Contender Series be the only UFC adjacent show in the Apex? I assume you mean like you don't want like Power Slap or.
No, this is the way the way I look at it is that it's a casual take. So, are you only interested in watching the Apex for the UFC, or are you interested in other things that the UFC that it like, say for instance WWE, right? If the UFC Apex is pushed to be a venue that brings events like, say, Invitica or other things, or even WWE or other small regional shows, the grappling events that they hold, are you okay as a fan with watching those events, or do you only care about the MMA that happens there that's closely related to the UFC? I guess that's my bigger question.
Well, this is a pretty easy answer for me. If it wasn't the UFC there, I'm probably not going to watch it, because Apex doesn't do nothing for me. It doesn't add any value to the production or my happiness at home as a viewer. It doesn't have any cool special effects. It doesn't have like, what the hell about the Apex stands out in any way, shape, or form. So if it weren't for it being the UFC or something that I already wanted to watch already or was already going to watch already, yeah, it would actually probably be a detriment. It might make me tune out and turn away, knowing that it's going to take place in a fucking garage in the middle of the desert.
That's fair. That's honestly fair. Shit. You know what? Yeah, there's a part of me that likes the idea of the UFC pushing out past its fan base. And that's kind of the idea with the Apex, where they allow the WWE to hold events, right? The initial point of the Apex was to give other regional scenes the ability to be there at the UFC's doorstep, instead of having to send, scouts like Mick Maynard and Sean Shelby to look at talent. They can have it on their doorsteps. They are there in Vegas. It's at the Apex. The event is held into the Apex. And all they have to do is just show up and watch the talent that shows up at the Apex from whoever decides to rent it out, right? So the possibility of other events that can draw your attention to there, I think would be interesting, only because it is beyond what was designed for the Apex. But again, that comes with the concept of what else is willing to be there. So if it's not just the UFC's version of jiu-jitsu tournaments, the Contender Series, I wouldn't mind seeing regional shows there, because that would be what it was intended for, and I would love to see kind of how that looks like. But I mean, hell, if the UFC can be told, hey, you can actually bring in other, fans instead of people just laying in like $1,000 chairs that recline in front of the Apex, like the cage itself. I mean, that would be fine. I don't know. It shouldn't take the WWE to show how to turn a small venue into a fan-friendly event, you know. But I think that's just me, you know. Dave, do you have anything? Or go ahead, Lazy. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I get what you're saying. I see where you're going, but let Dave go ahead.
No, I don't have any. Should the Contender Series be the only UFC adjacent show on the Apex? No. If they want to do regional MMA there, I'm okay with it. I don't really. It's just a building. It's just a. I don't care.
Yeah, like, the only other thing that I was going to add is that all it is, when you think about it, is it's a TV set. It's a television studio TV set. And with that, it's a blank canvas for them to be able to do whatever they want. I don't object at all to regional MMA coming in there and doing what you just said, Austin. My only thing is, if you're the UFC and you're going to continue to use this venue because it's basically pure profit for you because it's all produced in-house, fit and customize your television studio to present a more enjoyable product. Like, it still looks the exact same as it did when they first started having these fights there during COVID. So, like, if you're going to utilize your in-house TV studio, make it so that when these regional promotions want to come in and host their events there, that it's suited to present a product that's like has a signature look or feel, instead of just being the same fucking thing we've seen for 4 years now.
God damn, some conviction on that. I like it. That's fair. I like it. Some heartfelt truths in there, and I like that. Okay. Dave, what would be the next question on this?
Was the Apex a failure of the UFC's penny pitching, or was it a savior the sport needed that outlived its usefulness?
I would say probably more of the latter. There was a time when it was very needed, and it did provide us with a venue and a place to hold fights when the UFC and a lot of other organizations were encountering difficulties in keeping things going. So yeah, it had its place and time, but it has I don't remember how exactly you worded it there, but outlived its purpose. It's reached its expiration date as far as continuing on to give us this same product week after week. I basically keep saying the same thing to every single one of these questions. Just do something to change the presentation, update, renovate, grow, expand. You're the UFC and you have all the fucking money in the world at your fingertips. Do something to make this more enjoyable for us fans. So yeah, served a purpose, but it's definitely outlived its time.
Nice. Okay. Very, very direct. I like it. Dave, do you have anything to add on this?
It wasn't a failure at all. It was the second part. It was definitely the savior. The sport needed that, and Dana White. And I don't think it's actually outlived its usefulness. I think it's still useful, and this is just the start of something special. And here's to the next 900.
I love it. You know what's interesting is that I think it's a mixture of both. So here's my thing on it. Because you're right, Lazy. The idea was it was absolutely necessary when we were in COVID, and it was the only fight, actually only sport, I should say, only sport that you can watch. Because if you remember, as Stephanie Haynes was saying in our Mind Palaces, we started the pandemic immediately after Izzy versus Yoel Israel Adesanya versus Yoel Romero, right? And the joke was that that fight was so bad that it brought the pandemic upon us. And the next event was held in Brazil. If you remember the main event, it was Charles Oliveira, who was riding like a 5 or 6 fight win streak at the time, versus Kevin Lee, and Charles handled him. And the truth of the matter is that the Apex was always an alternative, and it was only meant as a in case of us needing an event to be held for the cheap. When the pandemic hit, the pandemic allowed the UFC to save money, but also put on events that would guarantee their contracts. If you remember correctly, they were looking for any which venue they could find. Hell, you remember the story of Dennis on ESPN talking to Brett Okamoto saying, "I've acquired an island. I have an island." Turns out it was just a sandbar that they had in Saudi Arabia, and they were holding events there for a good minute until they had the Apex available. And or I should say, it was a mixture of the two. And then they also had a place that I am aware of that's about maybe 2.5, 3 hours north of me, Couch Palace in Lemoore, California. And they were trying to have an event on Native American land, and the governor told Disney executive, "Hey, you need to tell your boy to stop, or I'm going to have to go in there and handle business." Disney told Dana, "Stand down." And that was it was a whole issue in itself. Realistically, the Apex is supposed to be something you go to every so often. It shouldn't be something that you overuse to the point to where the fan base hates it. Whereas the Apex also has other uses to hold events there that are outside of the UFC. But honestly, most of us are going to watch for the fights. Unless you're a hardcore that watches every single combat sport, whether it be jiu-jitsu, slap fighting. God forbid, if you're a slap fight fan, I have to pray for you, but that's neither here nor there. But we all have our vices. We all watch the things that we watch for one reason or another. I think the Apex was a perfect example of overindulgence. When we overindulge in something, we also grow tired of it. We kind of get sick of it. We kind of look for other things beyond that. We've gone to the Apex with the cars that we have for reasons that only the UFC will know. And truly, it is about penny pitching. The Apex can be an alternative for fight nights, yet they treat it as if it's for excess fat. And it's not wrong to treat it that way, but you can only treat it that way very, very, very seldom. Because if you treat it like that all the time, you tell the fan base that is the only way you see the Apex, is that we're trimming the fat here. We are allowing excess contracts to get filled out. We are allowing fighters to get fights that we haven't booked for prior. And we are maybe putting one fight that matters on it. So I think it's a mixture of both because of that. So, yeah. Dave, if you could read us the next question.
What was your favorite Apex fight?
Oh, yes. I was actually just looking ahead at this question, trying to think what fight that might be. Well, you got to figure 100 events at the Apex after this Saturday. Not to give away when we're recording this, but 100 events after this Saturday. We'll say roughly 6 hours per event, and that's probably being going on the lesser side. Some of these have gone longer. So that's about 600 hours of watching fights at the Apex. That's a lot of hours spent doing this. There's been some good ones, man. There's been some really good ones. One that comes to mind right off the top of my head is Josh Emmett versus Shane Burgos. That was a fucking barn burner. Two guys that are always fun to watch. Went in there, had themselves a fantastic scrap. I'd say another one that probably comes to mind in a negative way, Francis versus Stipe. when Francis knocked Stipe's head off of his fucking shoulders. That was not fun for me, but memorable. So I don't know if it'd be a favorite or it's more of like an infamous Apex fight. Yeah. And then for the last one, my last mention, I should say, let's go Max Holloway and Yair Rodriguez. That was another fun fight that I'm pretty positive happened in the Apex.
Great choice. And yes, I believe that was the case. Yes. Yes, Queen. Yes. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit sassy as I drink more. No, great choices. Great choices all around. The truth for me is, if I think of the Apex, the original reasoning the UFC used it for, the ability to hear Dan Hooker and Dustin Poirier go to war in a violent symphony of sounds that I believe was rarely heard prior to the pandemic. And if you remember correctly, Dan Hooker was coming off of a fight of the year candidate against Paul Felder. And Dustin Poirier was looking to get back into the mix, I believe, after facing Dustin. Dustin was just kind of getting back into the mix, I think, if I can't remember his fight history off the back of my head. But listening to those moments inside the cage, the heavy breathing, the punches hitting against both face, body, arms, and sides, the sweat that you would see spraying, the blood that would flow, the thuds you would hear in the cage, the screaming you would hear from the fans that were only maybe a handful at the most at the time. And even when you heard the media in the background, that was something that was unique to the Apex. And if I remember correctly, I believe someone said the reason why we listen to the Apex is because we would never have listened to the sounds that we would hear in the gym live. And that sticks with me. And that is why Dustin Poirier versus Dan Hooker will be my favorite event of all time. And I remember watching it live because I remember seeing Dustin Poirier literally throwing slap hammer fists and seeing Dan Hooker literally try to survive and putting all he could against Dustin Poirier, and Dustin Poirier literally surviving. Jumping Gilly started there for Dustin Poirier. And I'll give him credit. This son of a bitch was never quitting despite facing a dangerous man in Dan Hooker. And Dan Hooker literally looked like he was going to the hospital immediately after the fight, which in case he did, if you remember the photo. That sticks for me and will live with me for an infinity because of what we witnessed that night. Two men weren't even guaranteed a title shot, but they were guaranteed violence, and they delivered on that in full. That is what the Apex was for, giving us intimate moments in fights where we can hear, see, and feel every punch, every strike, every slam, every blood-curdling moan that these men would throw at each other and feel. That is what the Apex is about. Dave, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, just a quick shout out to fights like Jose Aldo versus Rob Font, where we got to see Aldo still looking good at 135 and dropping people. Another great fight was Sarukian versus what's his face? The other Sarukian versus the other grappler.
Petrosian, not Petrosian. I know who you're talking about.
I'm so old. I know.
Mateus Gamrot.
Gamrot,
yep.
Yeah, that was a very apexy fight. That was, a good display of grappling and stuff. And then, I think, wasn't Yuri Prochazka versus Reyes pretty sloppy fun until.
Yeah.
So there were some good times at the old Apex. those are just a few fights, but man, looking through the list, it was like I don't know. I think the first Brandon Moreno versus Figgy Smalls was an Apex fight, UFC 255, no
Oh,
250, 256. That was a
what
good scrap.
was the Davison Figueiredo and Joseph Benavidez fight in the Apex where Benavidez got put to sleep and he woke up and he screamed?
I
Yeah,
thought
I
it
think that was
was.
the. Was that not the second one or the first one?
That was the second one, but it was either at the Apex or it was over on Yaz Island or whatever. I know the arena was empty
Yes.
because you could hear him fucking scream through the whole arena.
Yeah, because like I thought Gaethje versus fucking Ferguson was at the Apex, but no, that was just at an empty
That was in
Barclays
Miami.
Center. Or was it?
Yeah,
It was
I believe
empty
it was in
though.
the.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it was. No, yeah, it was definitely in the Miami area. Because Florida said fuck it, we'll have the OC here.
Yeah.
I remember that. Because they UFC said we may have the ability to have events outside of the US, and Khabib said okay. And sure enough, Ferguson was like, "Why aren't you in the U.S.?" And Khabib was like, "Well, they basically said they had something. I was just kind of being preemptive about it, and I wanted to go home and train in Russia." And sure enough, like Tony, being Tony, was like, "Nah, fuck that. I'll fight you now." And Khabib's like, "I can't. I literally can't come into the country right now, you asshole." It's like, fuck. And then the UFC's like, "Well, technically, Justin Gaethje is available."
That was Jacksonville, Florida.
Yes. Okay, there it is. Jacksonville. Fuck the Jaguars.
I'm looking at the Wikipedia right now. It says attendance none.
That's right. Yes. God bless this fucking stupid fucking sport.
Hey, we made it though. 100 big ones, 100 big Apex shows. We fucking made it, guys.
God, I mean, if we get past 200, I better be fucking 10 years older than I am now. God. I would hope so. I'm on my fourth beer. That is what it is.
Yeah.
Dave.
Yeah.
What is the next question here? Or is there a next question?
Why are you gay?
Flamboyant would be the word. Flamboyant would be the word.
That was the last question.
Oh, that was the last. I'll posit this. I'll posit this.
You'll pause at what?
No, I'll pause it. Like I'll ask this as a group question.
Okay.
Your final.
Do you look forward? My final thoughts on this. Yes, thank you, Dave. Thank you, Lizzie. I look forward to Apex events, but I would like to see the Apex be reimagined, hopefully for the better, so that we can enjoy the fights for what they are. Now, is that something that we will get? Who knows? I would like to believe that the UFC is capable of not so much change, but addressing the elephant in the room, which is the willingness to penny pinch and stretch the roster thin, but not thin on the top half of the roster, which is the fighters that we all want to see. They're more willing to stretch the lower end of the roster, I think, and give us more of the contender series fighters because they cost less. I would like to see more fighters get paid more for fighting more often because I would like to see fighters be successful. Hell, we just had the end of the goddamn lawsuit for the first half of the fighters lawsuit, the class action. And there's part of me that thinks I would like to know that our sport is heading in the right direction. Is it? Who knows? I mean, hell, we just had an election, and yeah, you know, you can either say it was great and successful for you, or and your guy won, right? or you could say, someone that you thought was better for the country, didn't exactly get what, the result she wanted. It is what it is. But for us as fight fans, we want to see the sport grow and we want to see the sport do better. I think the UFC is capable of that. As fans, I think it's our responsibility to tell the UFC, hey, we expect more of you. I think we owe them that, and I think they owe us better cards. I believe that we can give the UFC the credit it deserves when it deserves it, but I believe we also should be able to tell the UFC, hey, you're kind of slipping here a little bit. That shouldn't be a bad thing. It shouldn't be frowned upon to give critique in this era of the sport. Lazy, did you have anything to add to this?
No, I'd just like to say that this was a fun experience. I had enjoyable time having this discussion with you guys, and should we be stuck with 100 more Apex events, I hope we can get back here for Apex 200 and do double the bitching that we did this time around. Beep, beep, beep.
That's right. I love it. Dave, do you have anything to add this as well?
No, I just look forward to a bright future with my third favorite buffet, the UFC Apex, and I like it. It gets. I don't really care where. I don't care as much. I care more about the fights and just having something on than like really caring where it's at.
Yeah. At the end of the day.
Yeah, that's fair. We're all degenerates, so it's not the same for us.
Like I do appreciate like the UK cards and the France cards and the ones where the audience is going to go nuts and stuff and support their guys, but I don't. In the end, I don't really care that much. But that's neither here nor there.
And that is neither here nor there. How about that?
No, bitch, you took my thing. All right.
Austin, take us out and tell the people to subscribe.
That's right. All right. Well, this has been neither here nor there with me, the host, No Special, aka Austin. With me and joining us for this episode, our second inaugural episode, is Lazybed, and our endearing editor-in-chief, Dave, with the help of his assistants, Steven and Chatri. We hope you liked the episode. Please like and subscribe. This is a product of Just Believe Radio. Again, this is neither here nor there. And we hope to see you in the next one. Thank you.
Bye.
See you later.
Fuck you, Craig. Fuck you, Craig. I forgot Craig fucked us earlier.
Craig, you're worse than ever, motherfucker.
Oh my God.